My name is Reverend Michael Capato, and I'm a minister here in Detroit. And I want to talk to my white friends who say that they love Jesus, Christian to Christian. Can I let you in on a little secret? Despite what you might have heard on Fox News by people trying to scare you into voting for them, no one is trying to take Jesus away from you. And no one is trying to cancel Christianity either. If that were the case, I'd be making a totally different video than I am now. But what's happening is a lot of good people, including ministers like me, are beginning to take a hard look at some parts of our society and our belief systems and realizing that perhaps we haven't done the best job of representing Jesus for everybody, for all God's children, especially those whose skin color is darker than mine. And it's time that we look at changing these things. For example, I hate to break it to you, Jesus didn't look like this. He wasn't a blonde white dude. No one born in that part of the world of Jewish parentage like Jesus looked like that. In fact, nearly 20 years ago, Israeli archaeologists and British scientists used forensics anthropology, the same thing that you've seen on TV shows like CSI, to figure out what Jesus would have actually looked like. It was so interesting that Popular Mechanics actually did a cover story on it. They scanned and analyzed skulls from that period of time, and with 3D modeling, they were able to create a composite of what they believed that Jesus actually looked like. This guy. Short, dark skin, and dark hair. A typical Middle Eastern Jew. Definitely not the tall, blonde-looking guy that we grew up picturing, right? Still don't believe me? Think about it this way. Don't you think that if a person with these features who looked different from everybody else was ministering in that region, that the Bible would have mentioned something of it? Just the opposite happened, like in the Gospel of Matthew. When Jesus was arrested in the garden before the crucifixion, Judas had to point him out to the soldiers because they couldn't tell him apart from the other disciples. If there was one blonde, tall white dude in the crowd, wouldn't he have stood out like a sore thumb? So that's why we're looking at images that portray Jesus as some sort of 2,000-year-old surfer dude and depicting him more accurately, or not at all. But even if we don't replace anything, it's important to have this conversation about how Jesus has been represented in this melting pot of a country of ours and what it's done to so many people. It's a sad historical truth that the image of Jesus has been used since the Middle Ages by white people to dominate people of color around the world, mostly for economic gain. Beginning then, artists portrayed Jesus and the disciples as white-like Europeans, while at the same time Pilate, Herod, and the Jews who called for Jesus' death were shown as having darker skin. By tying these images to biblical verses connecting lightness with purity and darkness with sin, these were used to push the idea that white people are good and not white people are bad, or less than human. And this goes on today inside our churches and our Bibles. You'll still see pictures where Jesus is white and Herod and the other bad guys are dark-skinned. It's called the bad is black effect. It's where we get the idea that angel food cake is white, devil's food cake is black, where the good cowboys wear white hats and the bad guys are either brown-skinned native people, or if they're white, they're wearing black hats, where white is good, non-white is bad. This idea was used to justify stealing long-established Muslim trade routes with a fake holy war against dark-skinned people in the Middle East. And from the Middle Ages through Nazi Germany, anti-Semitic acts were committed against Jews that often involved stealing their property and possessions. We've used this excuse to take land from around the world from native people, such as our own Native Americans, under the guise of converting them to Christianity, and to steal actual dark-skinned people and use them as slaves to work the plantations and cotton fields of America. The idea of a white Jesus has been used to rationalize controlling and taking from people who don't look like that version of him, or us. Can you honestly show me in the Gospel of Jesus where he's condoning any of this? Where he is saying that one group of people is lesser than another based on the color of their skin or anything, and therefore it's okay to take advantage of each other, to hate each other? But the biggest thing for me is that when we think of Jesus looking like this, We're treating the people who Jesus actually looked like crap. We don't see the face of Jesus in them, and we treat them as less than, not as equals. To be blunt, if Jesus were walking in your neighborhood, you'd probably call the cops on him, if you even let him in the country. So I'll say it again. No one is canceling Christianity or getting rid of Jesus. The people who are telling you this are just trying to scare you into voting for them so that they and their friends can keep getting rich off the backs of people of color and off of anyone else who isn't a billionaire like them. Whether it's creating supposed modern holy wars against people in the Middle East to make the arm manufacturers and their shareholders richer, opioid addiction and a phony war on drugs meant to make the pharmacy and prison industry and their shareholders richer, or to steal more native land and suck it dry to make the oil companies and their shareholders richer, they're using you to help them. They're even making you so scared of people with darker skin than you that you go out and buy more guns and ammunition to make Smith & Wesson and their shareholders richer. Do you detect a pattern here? These people are using you and your faith in God and Jesus to keep lining their pocket. And unless you're a billionaire shareholder in one of these businesses or one of the politicians that they own, and not an average hardworking person, this kind of racism is actually hurting you too. It's hurting all of us. You're helping them keep you from having adequate health care so you don't go broke if you get sick. And guess what? We all get sick. They're keeping you from having an adequate or living wage. And the biggest thing is that they're giving your tax money, the money you sent them, to their already rich friends in this time of crisis instead of the people who need it more. The people who lost their jobs and the people who are in danger of losing their home. Maybe even you. So the only thing we want to cancel is the racism, the intolerance and hate that has come to be entwined with Christianity, especially in this country, and used as a justification for the sin of greed. All we really want to do is get back to that old-time religion. You know, the one where Jesus commanded us to love one another? The one where Jesus demonstrated through stories like the Good Samaritan that God does not show favoritism, but accepts all people from every nation. So see, if you're more upset that people are taking a hard look at this, about how we have presented Jesus, and you're more upset about maybe wanting to get rid of the white guy than how we treat the very people who look like Jesus, then you're worshiping a false idol. And I believe the Bible says a thing or three about doing that. And if you believe that all lives really matter to you, then you'd be joining us in saying that black lives do too. Because we're all created in the image and likeness of God after all. God bless you.